They need proper spiritual guidance, my mother-in-law Margaret declared, standing in my kitchen with that familiar look of righteous superiority. Someone needs to think about their souls while you're busy playing doctor. My name is Diana, and at 35, I was facing yet another battle with the woman who'd spent the last decade trying to control every aspect of my family's life. As an emergency room physician, I dealt with my fair share of crises, but nothing prepared me for the storm Margaret was about to unleash. What do you mean, proper guidance? I asked, though the sinking feeling in my stomach told me I already knew. Margaret had been watching my kids, Emma, 12, and Lucas, 9, while I worked night shifts at the hospital. My husband James was away on a 6-month military deployment, and I'd reluctantly accepted her help with childcare. I've enrolled them in youth ministry at True Path Church, she announced, sliding the registration forms across my counter. They start next week. All the forms are signed. I forged your signature, of course, but it's for their own good. I stared at the papers, my hands shaking with anger. True Path Church was known in our community for its extreme views and strict indoctrination of children. It was everything I deliberately kept my kids away from, wanting them to form their own beliefs and understanding of the world. You had no right, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. You can't just make decisions about my children's religious education without my consent. Margaret waved her hand dismissively. Someone had to step in. Those science books and multicultural programs you expose them to aren't providing proper moral foundation. Besides, Emma's already excited about their purity classes. Their what? I nearly choked on my coffee. It's a wonderful program teaching young girls about modesty and submission. Something you clearly never learned, she added with a pointed look at my hospital scrubs. Before I could respond, Emma and Lucas burst through the door, home from school. Margaret's face lit up with artificial warmth. There are my precious angels. Tell your mother about the wonderful church programs you'll be attending. Lucas looked confused, but Emma's face showed clear discomfort. Mom, she said quietly, Grandma says I have to throw away my astronomy books because they conflict with true faith. Something in me snapped. After years of enduring Margaret's subtle manipulations and criticism, this was the final straw. She wasn't just attacking me anymore. She was trying to reshape my children's minds, erase their curiosity, and dampen their spirits. Kids, go to your rooms and start your homework, I said calmly. I need to speak with Grandma alone. Once they were gone, I turned to Margaret. You're done watching them. I'll find alternative childcare, even if it means adjusting my hospital schedule. Don't be ridiculous, she scoffed. Who else will guide them properly? That diversity-obsessed after-school program you were considering? They need structure, tradition, proper values. I picked up the church registration forms and slowly, deliberately tore them to pieces. What they need is to grow up in a home where curiosity is celebrated, where questions are encouraged, and where they're free to explore their own path to understanding the world. Margaret's face turned red. You're making a terrible mistake. I'll tell everyone at church how you're denying your children spiritual guidance. What will people think? I don't care what your church thinks, I replied, but I do care about what my children think, and I won't let you or anyone else force them into a box of your making. She grabbed her purse, heading for the door. You'll regret this. Those children need saving from your godless influence. James would be ashamed if he knew how you were raising them. As the door slammed behind her, I sank into a kitchen chair, my mind already racing with plans. Margaret had unwittingly sparked something in me, not just anger, but inspiration. If she wanted to talk about guidance and community, I'd show her exactly what that could look like without manipulation and fear. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. Our neighborhood had plenty of families like mine, parents working hard to raise curious, open-minded children. Maybe it was time we created something new, something that would truly serve our community's needs. Emma peeked around the corner. Mom, are we really not going to Grandma's church? Her eyes lit up, like a science club. Something like that, I smiled. But bigger, much bigger. Little did Margaret know, her attempt to control my children's minds would lead to a project that would transform not just our family, but our entire community, and this was just the beginning. I beckoned her over, pulling her into a tight hug. No, sweetheart, but I think it's time we started something even better. How would you like to help me create a place where kids can actually learn, explore, and grow together? Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into creating something extraordinary. During my breaks at the hospital, I reached out to other parents, professionals, and educators in our community. The response was overwhelming. I wasn't the only one looking for an alternative to traditional after-school programs. Sarah, a local librarian, offered our first meeting space. When 15 families showed up that first Saturday, I knew we were onto something special. Among them was Andrea, a NASA engineer, who immediately volunteered to lead science workshops. Michael, an art therapist, suggested incorporating creative expression sessions. Even Dr. Patel, my colleague from the pediatric ward, offered to teach basic first aid and human anatomy to the kids. We called it Discovery Hub, a place where children could explore everything from robotics to world cultures, from art to astronomy, all while building meaningful connections with their community. Emma and Lucas thrived in this environment, their natural curiosity finally finding the perfect outlet. Of course, Margaret couldn't stay away. She showed up unannounced one afternoon, just as Emma was leading a presentation about the solar system to a group of younger kids. "What kind of chaos is this?" she demanded, watching children gathered around microscopes and art stations. "This isn't proper structure. This isn't proper anything." I was about to respond when Emma spoke up, her voice clear and confident. "Actually, Grandma, I'm teaching them about Johannes Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Want to join us?" Margaret's face turned an interesting shade of red. "Teaching? You're 12. You should be learning about proper things, not filling children's heads with science." Lucas piped up from his coding station. "Mom says understanding how the universe works helps us appreciate its wonder even more." Before Margaret could launch into another tirade, Andrea stepped forward. "Mrs. Carter, I'm Andrea Wilson, NASA's lead engineer for the Mars rover project. Would you like to see what your grandchildren have been creating? Their innovations are quite remarkable." I watched as Margaret struggled to maintain her disapproving facade while faced with actual accomplished professionals who were volunteering their time to educate our children. Her usual tactics of dismissal and moral superiority fell flat in the face of genuine expertise and enthusiasm. "This is all very interesting," she managed, her voice stiff. "But what about their spiritual growth? Their moral development?" Dr. Patel, who had been teaching a group about the human heart, joined our conversation. "You know, Mrs. Carter, I find that children who understand how magnificent and complex our world is naturally develop a deep sense of wonder and respect for all life. Isn't that the foundation of true spirituality?" Margaret left that day looking confused and slightly deflated, but I knew this wouldn't be the end. Sure enough, the next Sunday, she had her pastor come to inspect our program. What she didn't expect was for Pastor Richardson to be genuinely impressed. "This is remarkable," he said, watching children from different backgrounds working together on various projects. "The level of engagement, the sense of community, this is exactly what our youth program needs more of." Margaret's jaw dropped. But they're teaching evolution, and about other religions. They're teaching children to think, to question, to explore. Pastor Richardson replied thoughtfully, "In my experience, faith is strengthened by understanding, not threatened by it." That evening, as we were cleaning up, Emma helped me organize the new microscopes donated by the local university. "Mom," she said, "remember when Grandma said we needed saving? I think maybe we're saving ourselves by learning how amazing everything really is." Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. The Discovery Hub continued to grow. We added weekend workshops, field trips, and even started a mentorship program pairing older kids with younger ones. Local businesses began offering internships to our teenage participants, and the university's science department provided guest speakers and equipment. Margaret still made occasional appearances, but something had shifted. Maybe it was seeing her grandchildren confidently leading projects, or noticing how many families from her own church had joined our program. Whatever the reason, her criticism became less frequent, though she couldn't resist sending me passive-aggressive texts about alternative education. One day, as I watched Emma teaching a group of younger girls about constellations while Lucas helped another child with a coding problem, I realized we created something far more powerful than just an after-school program. We'd built a community where curiosity was celebrated, where questions were encouraged, and where children could grow into confident, thoughtful individuals. And this was just the beginning of our journey. 3 months after launching Discovery Hub, I received an unexpected call from the mayor's office. Our program had caught the attention of the city council, and they wanted to feature us as a model for community education initiatives. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about our success, complete with photos of our kids conducting experiments and working on collaborative projects. Margaret, surprisingly, was the one who brought me the newspaper. She stood in my kitchen, looking uncomfortable but less combative than usual. "The pastor's granddaughter can't stop talking about the robotics workshop," she said, fiddling with her purse strap. "And Sister Mary from church says her son's grades have improved significantly since joining your program." I waited, sensing there was more. I may have been, she paused, clearly struggling with the words, hasty in my judgment. "Emma showed me her science fair project yesterday. I didn't understand half of it, but the way she explained it, she's growing into quite the young lady." It wasn't quite an apology, but from Margaret, it was monumental. That weekend, something extraordinary happened. During our regular Saturday session, Margaret showed up wearing a Discovery Hub volunteer badge. She'd signed up to teach traditional crafts and storytelling, adding her own unique perspective to our diverse program. "Every child should know how to make proper pie crust," she announced, setting up her baking station. "And there's science in it too, something about gluten formation and temperature control." The children loved it, especially when she combined her baking lessons with stories about historical figures who had changed the world. Even I had to admit, watching her teach while incorporating elements of both tradition and progress was remarkable. James returned from deployment shortly after, and his reaction to Discovery Hub brought tears to my eyes. He spent an entire Saturday moving from station to station, watching in awe as our children confidently led activities and explained complex concepts. "You've built something amazing here," he said, pulling me close. "This is exactly what community should look like." The real breakthrough came during our first annual Discovery Hub showcase. We transformed the community center into an interactive exhibition of everything our children had learned and created. Emma's astronomy presentation drew university professors. Lucas and his coding club demonstrated robots they'd built. Even Margaret's baking station, which cleverly incorporated lessons about chemical reactions, had a constant crowd. As families moved from exhibit to exhibit, I noticed Margaret standing alone, watching Emma explain lunar phases to a group of captivated adults. I joined her, bracing myself for criticism. "You know," she said softly, "I was so worried about them not having proper guidance. I thought I knew what that meant." She turned to me, her eyes misty. "But watching them now, Emma teaching astronomy with such passion, Lucas helping younger kids with technology, I realized they had the best guidance all along. They had you." I reached out and squeezed her hand, both of us watching our family thrive in this space we created together. 1 year after Margaret's attempted church intervention, Discovery Hub had expanded to 3 locations across the city. We'd received grants for STEM education, arts programming, and community development. But more importantly, we created a place where children could grow without fear of judgment or limitation. Emma started a girls' science club, mentoring younger students who reminded me of her a year ago. Lucas developed a coding program specifically for beginners, making technology accessible to everyone. And Margaret, to everyone's surprise, became one of our most dedicated volunteers, bridging the gap between tradition and innovation in ways none of us expected. During our recent family dinner, Margaret brought up her attempted church enrollment. "I thought I was saving them," she admitted, watching Emma and Lucas argue playfully about quantum physics. "I never imagined they'd end up saving our whole community instead." I looked around my kitchen, now regularly filled with the sounds of children's laughter, scientific debates, and yes, even Margaret's baking lessons. What had started as a response to control and limitation had blossomed into something that brought our entire community together. "You know what, Mom?" Emma said, looking up from her latest project blueprint. "Remember when you said we needed proper guidance? I think we found it. We just had to create it ourselves." Margaret nodded, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "Sometimes," she said, helping Lucas with his coding homework, "the best guidance comes from learning to think for ourselves." And there it was, the lesson we'd all learned through this journey. Sometimes the greatest acts of resistance aren't loud or confrontational. Sometimes they're built slowly, thoughtfully, with love and determination, creating spaces where everyone can grow, learn, and thrive together. Discovery Hub continued to evolve, but its core remained the same. A place where curiosity was celebrated, questions were encouraged, and every child had the chance to discover their own path to understanding the world. And perhaps most remarkably, it had helped bridge the gap between generations, proving that growth and learning never really end. They just take different forms.